It was May 16th at Oracle Park, a Friday night. The Giants routed the A's 9-1. Wilmer Flores homered 3 times. Little did we know it was going to be the start of one of the worst quarters of a season offensively in recent memory.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and RotoGraphs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please just smash that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And coming up on today's show, we are going to get into what has now become a quarter season, a little more than a quarter season of utter offensive futility. The numbers behind it are staggering. We're going to get into the Giants' plummeting playoff odds and how this is a repeat theme for the Giants in the last several seasons. New regime, same story. And does Buster Posey have any answers? Is there anything that they can do or will do about this? So lots to get into as the Giants fall again and fall flat offensively again. Despite jumping out to a 2-0 lead, they completely fell apart. The wheels came off. Every mistake was punished, and it ended up being a laugher for the Diamondbacks, an 8-2 win over the Giants. And 2 runs is kind of the norm these days. I've said that it feels... Let's just get into the numbers because they are staggering. Like I said, it all started on May 17th, the day after the Giants routed the A's 9-1 with Flores hitting those 3 home runs. I was supposed to go to that game. I didn't end up going. And the guess in my family is that maybe me not going, I put a curse on the Giants. And so I don't know how to reverse this curse. Although one thing that I just thought about today is that Giants play the A's again coming up after Arizona. So maybe that'll be the full circle moment where things turn around, because this just can't continue. It's unsustainably horrific. And the numbers. So since May 17th, the Giants have scored. There's a breakdown on NBC Sports Bay Area, a graphic that I put up on Twitter, but they break down the runs per game. Like how many times have the Giants been shut out? 4 times in 4. This is 41 games, which is a little over a quarter of a season. They've been shut out 4 times. They've scored 1 run 4 times. They've scored 2 runs 9 times. So, little recap here. That's 2 or fewer runs 41% of the time. 1 or no runs 20% of the time. One out of every 5 games, they've scored 1 run or 0 runs. And continuing on, they've scored 3 runs 8 times. So that's 3 or fewer runs 61% of the time. Jeez, 3 out of 5 times they're scoring 3 runs or fewer. And they've scored 4 runs only 5 times. That's the most normal run total. Like, teams average 4-something runs per game. So do the Giants on the season. And yet that is the single least common result when we're looking at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Actually, I don't know exactly how many times they've scored 5 because the graphic shows 5+ runs 11 times. And that may seem a little bit surprising, but also it's the only one of these numbers that includes more than one exact number. So it could be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. And so that makes sense that it's the number one result. And also that is about 25% of the time they've scored 5 or more runs, which sounds okay. But keep in mind, like, two things. Number one, teams score an average of about 4.5 runs per game. So to score 5 should not be that big of a deal, but it is for the Giants. If they could score 5, it's like a party up in here, more than a party. It's like a party on a yacht. I don't know what else to say, but as has been pointed out originally by Alex Pavlovich, 3 of those times they scored 5+ were games at Coors Field, and one of the times was the game where they were playing the Dodgers and Kike Hernandez pitched the 9th inning, and the Giants put up a bunch of runs on them. I can't remember exactly how many runs they had before Kike Hernandez came in. I feel like it's almost safe to assume they would have scored none if it wasn't Kike Hernandez on the mound. Yeah, the Giants put up 5 in the 9th. They were getting shut out 11-0. And then they scored 5 in the 9th on Kike Hernandez. Let me just verify that. 5 runs scored against Kike Hernandez. Got shut down by Clayton Kershaw and Michael Kopech through 8 innings. So anyway, that could have been another shutout. So there you have it. 3 times at Coors, 1 time, 5 runs against a position player. Kike Hernandez, by the way, a position player is what I'm trying to say. So, okay, that's just staggeringly bad. Like 60% of the time, if you pick a random game, you're getting 3 runs or less. 41% of the time, 2 runs or less. That's crazy. You're not this could have been an utter disaster when it comes to their record, but it is worth pointing out they have managed to go 19-22 over this 41 game span. So it could have been much worse than this. 19-22, like when you look at, okay, what are the records around baseball over this span, that's almost an identical record to the Mets, the Diamondbacks. It's a little better than the Padres. So like some of the teams that started out great this season, including San Diego and the Mets, have also played similarly when it comes to their record over the last 25% of the season, the most recent 40-ish games. So the Mets are 20-20 during that span. The D-backs are 19-21. Giants 19-22. Padres 18-23 entering today, but they're playing and winning, and it's the bottom of the 9th. They're up 6-4 at the time of this recording. But anyway, the offensive futility, let me just say, the reason they've been able to go 19-22, which it's not great, obviously, but 2 more wins, and that's above 500. And there were definitely games where they could have won, twice over this span, like multiple 1-0 losses, including like against the White Sox. You got 2nd and 3rd with Rafael Devers at the plate. Like, it's just crazy that you find a way to lose that game. But I digress. So anyway, they've had a 3.35 ERA over that span, and that's what's saved them. That's the 3rd best mark in baseball over that span. So the pitchers have to be extremely frustrated. The Giants, their offense since the 17th of May, no surprise, their weighted runs created plus is 25th out of 30 teams. I mean, if anything is a surprise, it's that they're not dead last in this category. They have a .218 batting average since that time, which is dead last in baseball. They have a on-base percentage of .305, which is 24th. Padres are second to last, by the way, since the 17th of May. So they've also been struggling big time offensively. Arizona's slugging is first over that span, just by the way, and the Giants' slugging is last. So not good, folks. And if we look at runs scored, Giants are 28th with 135 runs scored in 41 games. So if we look at runs per game, which is obviously relevant. 135 divided by 41 is 3.29 runs per game. And their ERA is 3.35. So that checks out. I mean, it's almost the same, but a little bit worse than their ERA, and hence being a little bit below 500. So thank goodness they've pitched well. Otherwise, this could have been utterly disastrous from a win-loss perspective. It's not good as it is, but they've managed to not completely sink themselves yet, but something has to change. So coming up in just a minute, more specifically who's struggling at the plate, what the numbers are, playoff odds, and can anything be done? We'll get into all of it in just a minute, and before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you will find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled pros are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, here we go. We're going to get into more of the numbers behind the Giants' offensive slide. Like, that is not the right word. Their offensive disaster and the playoff odds. I've been avoiding even looking at them, so we're going to look at them together, hold each other's hands, and look at the playoff odds together and how they've plummeted. But also point out that this is an ongoing theme year after year. They are in a solid position and then it deteriorates. And does Buster Posey have any answers? Farhan Zaidi never had answers. Does Posey? We'll get into it. So anyway, I want to get into the specific players on the Giants, like who's swinging it well, if anyone, since the 17th of May, and who's not. And so, not surprisingly, which is why it felt so disastrous at the time, Matt Chapman was the only guy. I mean, not the only guy, but Matt Chapman, since the 17th of May, had a 157 weighted runs created plus going in 20 games. So he was red hot at the time of his injury, and that was a critical blow. And then his replacement, Casey Schmidt, since the 17th of May, almost an identical 156 weighted runs created plus, hitting 307, 402 on base, 493 slugging. Both of those guys, like 56, 57% above average offensively, both injured. And so another guy who was above average over that span was Christian Koss, who was hitting 300 with a 310 on base and 450 slugging. And that's about 9% better than league average. The on base is not great. It's only 10 points higher than his average, so not walking there. But nonetheless, he was definitely swinging it well. And then he got injured. So they're on to their fourth string third baseman, and it happens to be Wilmer Flores, who they have in the lineup anyway. So it does allow them to play both Flores and Dominic Smith, probably at the expense of defense. We'll see if that comes back to bite them. But Brett Wisely, surprisingly, has a 120 weighted runs created plus. And weighted runs created plus, by the way, if you're unfamiliar, talk about it all the time in the show. But 100 is average, so 120 means you've been 20% above average offensively. And Wisely has been 20% above average offensively in 6 games, with a strikeout rate of just 6.7%, walk rate of 20%. So interesting. Lamont Wade Jr. was 15% above average in 11 games over this stretch. So, he got, I don't want to say hot before being cut loose, but he wasn't struggling as much before being cut loose. Anyway, Elliot Ramos has maintained above average offense over this span. So he is the only regular in the lineup right now who's been above average. I guess you could say Dom Smith, who's been just barely above average offensively in 20 games. I want to say those are all the games that he's played since putting on a Giants uniform. They are. So he's been just barely above average. Elliot Ramos, 15% above average, and that's it. Everybody else below average during the stretch, including Rafael Devers, who continues to really struggle with strikeouts. Strikeout rate as a Giant of 37%. His career strikeout rate is 21.5%. So this is just abnormal. And I don't know. We know that he's dealing with some back tightness and some groin tightness. I don't know if that is what's causing this, but the good news is that's not going to last. Like, he's not going to strike out this much. He doesn't. Like, if you're thinking this is who Rafi Devers is, it's not. This is baseball. Sometimes guys go through stretches like this, and he did go through a stretch like this to start the 2025 season. He was 0 for 19 with 15 strikeouts to start the season. Anyway, Patrick Bailey has been better, by the way, since the 17th of May. Just a random little fact there. Only 20% below average offensively, whereas he was like 80% below average prior to that. Wilmer Flores has the same 80 weighted runs created plus as Bailey over this stretch. So, it's a little bit surprising, I guess, but it also is just true that Flores and Bailey have both really struggled over this span. I mean, it's more surprising that Flores is at the same level as Bailey, but that's just the reality of it. Willy Adames, 30% below average. So just kind of any way you slice up Willy Adames' season, it's been a struggle offensively. This includes a game in which he hit a home run last night. Like, this is updated for today. Adames over this span, 25% of the season, the most recent 25%, hitting 185 with a 283 on base and 319 slugging. So it's just been a struggle for Adames pretty much since the jump. He's had some, good stretches of like a week, maybe here and there, a couple times. But overall, offensively, it's just been a struggle. So hopefully he can turn it around. Yaz has been 33% below average during this span. How about Jung-Hoo Lee finally getting a day off yesterday, hitting 178 with a 287 on base and 274 slugging during this span? 36% below average. And Daniel Johnson, 42% below average. Tyler Fitzgerald, 63% below average. And a lot of these guys with hundreds of plate appearances. So that's just killing them offensively and explains everything. I mean, and the only guys who were really swinging it well, like very well, were Chapman and Schmidt, and they both got hurt. So that explains it, but also Chapman may be back in less than a week. Apparently, one thing I fear is that guys like Devers, maybe playing through an injury, trying to help the team. It's one of those things that you see happen, and like Chapman maybe coming back too soon. And then at the end of the year, they say, yeah, I came back too soon, or yeah, I was playing through an injury. I probably should have gone on the IL and let it heal up. You see that all the time, and it's like, maybe don't rush back. If it's going to hurt the team in the long run, like short term, they're already struggling. So it can't get much worse offensively. So make sure you're able to go and that you're ready to go when you come back would be my only opinion about that. So anyway, we're going to glance at the playoff odds now. And according to FanGraphs, I'm like averting my eyes. They're down to about, I'm going to just round up, it's 32.7, but let's call it 33%. 1 in 3 chance of making the playoffs, according to FanGraphs. That number was like 2 in 3 recently. So suddenly the Giants are 9 back in the division. It feels like they were just the day the Devers trade went down. I think they were a win away on that Sunday night baseball game from tying the Dodgers in the division, and now they're 9 back. So essentially, since adding Devers, they've lost. Well, they lost that day to the Dodgers, which made them 2 back. So they've lost 7 games in the standings in the West. I never was one who thought the West was very realistic. It's more about the wild card, in my opinion. And the Giants are just 1.5 back. Some of the teams that are in this race, it's not like I just said, the Padres are struggling as well offensively, although their game, I believe, wrapped up today. And are they playing? Yeah, they're playing a doubleheader, and they won the first game. The Brewers also won, but they beat the Mets, who are struggling in their own right. Brewers are now ahead of the Mets in the standings, so that's interesting. The Giants are 1.5 back of the Padres, and the Cardinals are the only team ahead of the Giants and out of a playoff spot. But the Cardinals have lost 3 straight. They lost already today to the Pirates. I think they got swept by the Pirates. So a lot of weird stuff going on right now. Like the Marlins are sweeping the Giants and the D-backs. The Pirates I think they swept the Mets, and now they swept the Cardinals. So that helps the Giants out a lot. So thank you, Pittsburgh. And very odd. I mean, it's just baseball, but it's a good example. It's not just the Giants who go through stuff like this, losing to bad teams. The Pirates are 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 6 straight. And yeah, it was the Mets and Cardinals that they swept. So good on them and good for the Giants. So we'll continue looking at the playoff odds, how this is a continuing trend, and does Buster Posey have any answers to this? We'll get into it in just a minute, and before we do, today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I used to have all my accounts, and there were a lot of them scattered all over the place, and I had no idea what was going on. It is very hard to stay on top of everything when you're living like that from a personal finance perspective. So having everything in one place allowed me to take control. So take control of your finances like I did with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, here we go. We're going to continue to squint and look at the playoff odds for the Giants and see how they've fallen. I'm going to look at the graph and just tell you how steep of a downward slope it's been recently for San Francisco. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow, we're going to be at this again with the Giants facing Arizona for Game 3 of this 4-game series. So immediately after the Giants lost last night, I was obviously not happy, but in my mind, eternally optimistic, I'm kind of thinking, okay, if you win the next 2, it seems hard, but you have a better record than Arizona. Like the Giants overall this season have outplayed Arizona, and that's just factual. So winning 2 games in a row, like the Pirates have proved it, the Marlins have proved it. Any team can beat any other team. So I don't want to hear that this is like impossible to beat Arizona twice. If you win the next 2, and then you just take 2 out of 3 against the struggling Oakland or Sacramento A's, who are especially bad at home, which is where the Giants will go, to Sacramento, their AAA home, the Giants' AAA home, it would be a 500 road trip. So that's the sick, twisted nature of baseball, is that it feels like the sky is falling, and it could be. You could also lose the next two and then lose the series against the A's, and then it would feel like a disaster. But if you can just win the next two in Arizona and then win a series in Sacramento, it would become a 500 road trip, which would be pretty funny because it feels impossible right now, but like it feels like such a horrible road trip right now. They're 1-4. So two wins in a row would make them 3-4, and then 2 wins in Sacramento would make them 5-4, and then another loss would be 5-5. So it is a 10-game road trip here. And then they play the Phillies and Dodgers at home. So you got to turn it around before you face some really good teams, and then it's the All-Star break. Anyway, that's all coming up tomorrow. The playoff odds, this is FanGraphs, like official playoff odds, but there are other projection systems out there like ATC, and that gives the Giants 36% odds of making the playoffs. The BatX, that projection system, still has the Giants with 45.5% odds of making the playoffs. So roughly 50-50, a little bit worse. And then there's this oopsie one, which has always hated the Giants. It gives them 25% odds of making the playoffs. So it ranges from 25 to 45% according to these different projection systems. All of them have the Giants finishing over 500. Oopsie has them at 82.3 wins. So their current record, which again I've been not looking at because it's painful to watch them slip like this, is 45-41. So despite it all, they are above 500, even though it doesn't feel that way. But anyway, this has been a trend. Like, it was mentioned on Twitter to me, and I agreed. It's not really a matter of agreeing or not. It's just kind of factual that even in all these recent years where ultimately it's been frustration and 500-ish records, maybe not every time, like I'm talking 2022, 23, and 24, but I think every time they had periods where they were like 10 plus games over 500, and then things fell apart in like July or August or September. And that's happening again. And it's just worth pointing out that for whatever reason, this team has a tendency to fall apart. They have had a tendency, and this would be like, I'd have to look at what was their season high games over 500 the last few years, but for sure, at least in 2 of those years, they were like 10 to 14 games over 500 at various points in the season, and then just, ended up playing like this. Wasn't necessarily this bad offensively and this good pitching, but ultimately the wins and losses just falling, slipping. I'll look at the graph of the playoff odds because I promised I would. I don't want to, but I will. And just see how sharp is the drop for the Giants. National League West. Yeah, it's steep, folks. It's steep. So basically, yeah, they were around 65, 66% playoff odds about 2 weeks ago. And now they're at, according to FanGraphs, 32. So a 30 plus percentage point plummet in 2 weeks. So, it might be helpful to look at the most recent 2 weeks and see what the record is and what the futility is. We know they're 1 and whatever in their last. They got swept by the Marlins. They won 1 against the White Sox. Now they've lost 2 straight against the Diamondbacks. So obviously it's been a rough stretch here. That's 3 losses, 4, 5, 6, 7 losses, and 1 win. Are they 1-7 in their last 8 games? I believe they are. 1-7. Yikes. Yes. It's true. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 1-7. So gonna have to turn that around. Does Buster Posey have any answers? Well, I don't know. One of the answers was to but pick up the 2026 option on Bob Melvin. I talked about that yesterday. I don't have a huge problem with that or the timing of it. It's, zigging when others might zag in terms of showing faith as opposed to like reactionary firings, which is what you often see in this game. And certainly that didn't feel like it was going to be Posey's style. But when I talk about are there answers, I'm talking about the players. Like, does he have another trade or 2 or 3 up his sleeve? Because this is a team that could certainly use some kind of infusion of talent and energy. Rafael Devers is going to hit at some point, but also he's slow and a DH. And it just feels like this is a team that could use someone who's kind of an impact athlete. I don't know where on the field exactly. You certainly have room if you want to replace Mike Yastrzemski, have him off the bench. Like that would lengthen and deepen your bench. So right field is a position, center field, Jung-Hoo Lee, they've got signed to this big deal, but he's really, really been struggling. So I don't think you can do much there. So I feel like Jung-Hoo's going to play center, but long-term, Yastrzemski's contract is up at the end of the year. Second base is another position where they could upgrade, but I think Casey Schmidt deserves an opportunity to play when he's ready to go, and hopefully that'll be soon. But first base or DH is also a spot with Rafael Devers potentially playing first. The DH position, Wilmer Flores, it's been a struggle lately, and so I don't know that there's still room to improve, and they certainly could use it. And also the pitching is starting to waver a little bit with Hayden Birdsong getting lit up his last 2 times out. Big outing tonight for Landon Roop, and they're very reliant on Logan Webb and Robbie Ray continuing to do what they do, and an injury would be kind of devastating to this team with one of those guys. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, I'm Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. I cannot wait to be with you again tomorrow, talking about a win and many runs, manifesting this. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.